So we're in what used to be the gathering lawn. It's now the new home of the recently erected Mount Raulston, which is behind me. And for those of you that have been keeping score, Mount Raulston has gotten a little bit bigger. We've got more soil. And for those of you that don't know, this is the stages of a project along Barrel Road, which is right behind us, where we have removed a bunch of trees. We've done some grading in preparation for some much needed renew and redo in the garden. So we're going to be adding some berms along that fence line down Barrel Road and putting some new plants in, new paths, some new structures to help kind of control the way the water moves through there so that we're capturing the water and it's not going into the sewer system. So it's more of a sustainable garden. And all of that stuff has gotten underway within the last several weeks. So the first part of that was to stage some much needed soil that we're going to need to build the berms. So there was a project on campus where they had some topsoil and they got in touch with Mark. And literally Mark and I were in the garden one afternoon. I think it was my first week here. And they said, "Do you still want the soil?" Mark said, "Absolutely." And they said, "We're coming tomorrow." So we've had the soil here. It's rained almost every week since then. So we've slowly kind of been working up a plan, removing the trees, doing some grading. So we actually have started today flagging out the berms. We're working with Jeremy Schmidt, who is from our colleagues and partners at Juniper Level Plant Delight Nursery. Jeremy's got a lot of experience doing this kind of stuff, and he's helping us kind of sort things out. And he's going to help us construct the berms, and we're going to really stretch his creativity and steal those ideas from him. So we've got the beds laid out. We're doing a little bit of grading, a little bit of last minute plant removal, stuff that we wanted to keep, but it's still kind of in the way. So all that stuff is in process. It's going to take a few more weeks to get equipment to start moving the soil from here down there, but we're hoping really soon to have the soil moved, have the berms in place, recapture the gathering lawn, make it a nice place to come to and use it for events, as long as Mother Nature will agree to cooperate with us. So that's kind of the latest update on what's going on here. So as you're coming out to the Arboretum, and you'll start to see a lot more progress in that little naked part of the garden along Barrel Road, and we'll have some nice berms going up, and hopefully we'll be planting down there soon. Fingers crossed for good weather. And for all of you who've come out, thank you for your patience and dealing with us as we're trying to make this garden more diverse, more sustainable, and really take advantage of the palette of plants that we have in the nursery. So we'll get it squared away soon.
All right, I appreciate that insight into what's happening here at the Arboretum. It's pretty exciting for some big changes.
Yeah.
Earlier this morning, we were talking with the director of the U.S. National Arboretum and former intern, Richard Olson. He was talking about some chainsaw curation.
Yes.
And that's been a big part of what we've been doing recently is really starting to make some big changes, taking out some trees that we've evaluated, that we've know what they're doing, know what they've done. We've gotten them in the hands of other people where appropriate, and others are easy to come by. And for those who hate to see a tree go down under any circumstances, don't blame Greg. They came down right after he got here, but that wasn't his fault.
The conversation was started long before I got here. That's what I tell people.
That's right. So, it's pretty exciting to really create some new landscape features for planting here.
You don't get those opportunities a lot in most public gardens. And the other side of it too is if JC were still with us, this would be an ongoing process with him. He would be doing this stuff probably a lot more vigorous and with a lot less guilt than we have. I hate to cut things down, but in the interest of progress, interest, it's going to make it a more interesting garden. Everybody here is excited about it. It's just, getting it underway, getting it moving in a good direction, and getting over some hurdles that come with any kind of project like this. I feel positive we're going in a good direction with it.
I agree. And, one of the things we always harp on with people in success in gardening is soil.
Yeah.
And, you've seen Mount Raulston. And so we have got soil, and but that's not all the soil. What are we fixing that up with?
So we've got kind of two different grades of soil out there. Mount Raulston itself is compacted. That's decent soil, but we're going to be adding compost to it. We're going to be adding some stay-lite to it to help with the drainage. Excuse me, the allergy meds are wearing off, and to kind of pull it together to make it conducive to growing healthy, nice-looking plants. So
Yeah.
it's going to come. Once the soil is made, the berms, it's mixed together, the berms are put in place. We'll probably cover it with mulch to kind of keep it in place, add that organic matter layer. We've talked about leaf compost and mulch, a good thick layer, and fall planting, probably, if things keep going in the direction that they're going. So getting the berms in place is the big hurdle, and we're closer to that today than we've been. Getting them covered with mulch to keep them stabilized, and this fall, aggressively throwing a lot of plants at them.
Fall? We don't have time to plant plants in fall. We plant everything here in the middle of winter, in the middle of summer.
Yeah.
So it's pretty exciting developments, and I've been really excited recently about the growing on slopes. Yep. And we always talk about microclimates, and a lot of times when we're talking about that, we're talking about the little differences in temperatures and things. But the difference between growing something on flat ground versus growing it on a slope is amazing, and a lot of that has to do with the water and the
Yep.
drainage, and but also air movement,
exposure to light, all that stuff. And even, we're not talking about hundreds of feet. We're not talking about mountains. We're talking about 10 feet, 12 feet. And some of them shorter than that on the ends. But just those little changes are going to open up microclimates and opportunities to do different things. That's why the soil is important also to get that factor done. And also from a viewing standpoint, we're not flat here, but there isn't a lot of change in the topography. So the berms are going to provide that. The other thing that they're going to provide is a little bit of screening. I don't know, those of you that have been here, there's a lot of traffic on Barrel Road. It's broad, it's wide, it's a little scary out there sometimes.
It is.
So it's gonna help with the noise. It's gonna kind of throw some of that off, and that's gonna be a significant change, because we're competing with noise from the university, from the train, from the interstate construction, and that's just another factor. So that's, I think, going to make a huge difference from that perspective, and make it a better visit and kind of viewing point also.
And making visits better is, that's always part of what we're striving to do, making the Arboretum better. And so one of our more iconic features here, one that we're not doing any chainsaw curation with, is the necessary at McNeil Corner. And thanks to board member Carol McNeil, we're going to be doing some updating with that. Some of that involves the interior, and that is not a strong suit for me. So I don't even know entirely what's going on in there. That's been in the hands of Greg and Arlene and some of the folks from the university who are helping out. So, what are we shooting for with the necessary?
One of the things that I look at when I visit gardens, I'm embarrassed to say this, I like to look at all the different details, and everything that you go to in a garden is part of that experience. and is kind of signature to that garden. So we've got colleagues at Chanticleer in the Delaware Valley. They've got nice bathrooms. They're nice visually and with flowers and enhancements.
I'm going to tell you, Richmond, Lewis Ginner Botanic Garden.
Yes.
The wallpaper in one of their men's bathrooms
I have pictures.
Is monkeys.
I have pictures.
And the wallpaper in the other one are palm trees, and I love the wallpaper in the no two men's bathrooms. Okay. I'm not talking about the women. I don't know what's in the women's bathrooms, but I remember when I first walked in there, I was like, "Oh, I love this wallpaper."
Pictures right here. So those details are important, and it's all part of the experience. So Arlene and I linked up instantly with talking about some ideas, and we've got some really good ones. And quite frankly, we're kind of gobsmacked when we met with an interior designer who kind of like presented these ideas to us that weren't astronomical, that are going to really change the inside. It's got to be beautiful and indestructible at the same time because it gets used a lot. So those interior upgrades are going to be good. It's going to tie into the garden from a greater perspective. It's going to tie into the necessary and the theme of it. And it's going to tie into the landscape right outside of it too. So, if we're doing the outside, if we're doing the landscape, it makes sense to work on the inside as well. So it's gonna increase the experience to coming here. Yeah,
and one of the goals from our the master plan that we're still the updated master plan, but in 2006, 2007, when we did our initial master plan or current iteration of the master plan, one of the stated goals was to improve access. And as I always say to people, it's not, when we say, improve accessibility, everybody thinks wheelchairs, and that is something, but it is people who are a little unsteady on their feet, whether they're, 18 months old or they're, 85 years old, people with canes, with walkers, with strollers, a lot of young families with strollers, that accessibility is better. We want to make that better. And that's something that's been lacking there. It's accessible. Not really truly greatly accessible. So that's a big part of the outside, but also to dress it up and have a landscape that's worthy of that really iconic piece of the Arboretum.
And need to plug while I'm thinking about it, I forgot earlier, volunteers are such a crucial part to what we do here. We've got a great group of volunteers on our design committee that have been very helpful with all aspects of the outside of that, from pavers to plants to the lay of the land to drawing the designs for that. So shout out to all my peeps that are a part of that. They've been a great group to interact with and have been so ripe with really good ideas of things to do, and incredibly helpful with that creativity also.
Yeah, and everything, today's all about helping support the interns, but also all of our projects out here. So if you go to jcra.ncsu.edu and click that give button, we're trying to hit 210 gifts today. Now, one of the recent kind of small little projects that was something that I was really interested in trying was flowering lawn. We've recently had our winter symposium was about reducing lawns, reducing turf space, making turf more useful for pollinators. And this was a project that helped get kicked off by supporters like those of you watching us now.